and welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something big. We're unpacking a massive and honestly often totally invisible problem that might just be quietly sabotaging your company's potential from the very top down. We're talking about the deadly sin of constant top management turnover. Let's just jump right in with a question. Think about your own recent organizational history for a second. When was the last time your organization had the exact same top 3 people in leadership for 3 consecutive years, right? It's tough to answer. And more importantly, what actually happened when you did? For a lot of us, we might really struggle to remember a time when the leadership didn't just totally turn over every 24 months. If that sounds familiar, you're experiencing the exact turbulence we're breaking down today. You know the drill. A new executive comes in, promises this massive ground-up reset, only to be replaced a couple of years later by someone else promising the exact same thing. But we have to ask ourselves, what is this actually doing to the workflow, the culture, and of course, the bottom line? Well, this brings us to a trap that pretty much all of us fall into at some point. It's the myth of a fresh start. Now, on the surface, bringing in a new leader seems like a highly responsible move, doesn't it? A new director brings what feels like really fast energy, a fresh vision, some new focus. But here's the catch. This new leader rarely has the actual time required to truly understand the incredibly complex system they just inherited. So what do? Their immediate reflex is to just liquidate whatever was there before them and start completely from scratch. The whole attitude basically becomes, the faster the reset, the better. But let's think about your organization like a tree. The hidden damage of that fast reset mentality is literally like having a tree whose main root is regularly dug up, inspected, or just completely ripped out and replaced. I mean, if you keep shocking the root system like that, the tree is never going to grow deep. It simply can't establish a strong foundation. Every single time a new leader decides to wipe the slate clean, they are aggressively pulling up that root system. And you can see how this builds into this incredibly exhausting cycle. Director 1 comes in. Boom. The first 100 days, a completely new direction. Emails go out with all these new priorities, brand new charts are drawn up, everyone's expected to pivot immediately. But wait, just as the dust finally settles, they're gone. And here comes Director 2. Another 100 days, another total reset. And then honestly, before you even know what hit you, Director 3 arrives. Another first 100 days, a brand new vision. It's this frantic, rhythmic drumbeat of constant change. And let's be real, everyone sitting in the meeting round is secretly bored and totally exhausted by the new plan, mostly because they know it's only temporary. So this brings us to the very real, hidden systemic cost of this whole manic cycle. When you constantly swap out leaders, the real casualty isn't just company morale, it's the total, catastrophic loss of institutional memory. The system itself simply never gets the breathing room it actually needs to establish itself. We almost always end up blaming the leaders themselves, right? But the core issue here is the blistering speed of the turnover. The absolutely crucial point here is understanding what we are actually losing. Because institutional memory isn't just, a shared database of passwords or standard operating procedures. It is the collective, systemic knowledge of how things actually get done. It's those deeply forged working relationships. It's knowing exactly who to call when a very specific crisis hits. When management changes every 2 to 3 years, the time required for this kind of memory to naturally happen simply does not exist. It's completely erased before it can even take shape. And that frequent turnover forces incoming leaders into what we call prima donna syndrome. Because they only have this incredibly short window, they feel like they have to act fast. They bring this superficial fast energy and make really loud, disruptive changes just to prove they're doing something in their first 100 days. And look, they're forced to act this way because a 100-day window is pretty much all they really have. But as we know, actual operational excellence requires something entirely different. It requires deep systemic understanding and the slow, really deliberate building of trust. You absolutely cannot rush this reality. So to understand exactly how long that trust actually takes to build, we turn to the legendary management expert, W. Edwards Deming. Deming clearly saw what was happening to organizations that got trapped in this chaotic cycle of leadership resets. He understood the fundamental underlying mechanics of how human beings operate within corporate systems. And Deming's powerful thesis on this is simple, but it is incredibly profound. He said, people require an adequate time span to build trust and learn to work together. That span is usually 3 to 5 years. Just let that sink in for a second. 3 to 5 years. Think about the massive, gaping hole between the myth of the 100-day turnaround and Deming's reality. It takes a minimum of 36 months just to figure out how to effectively work together and establish a solid baseline of mutual trust. And honestly, the data makes Deming's point pretty much undeniable. When a leadership team is retained for 5 years, trust and institutional memory compound to incredibly high levels. It's like a snowball rolling down a hill. But with constant turnover, every single time a new leader steps in, that trust drops all the way back down to zero. Think about it. If your leadership changes every 2 years, your team can never be anything better than a group of absolute beginners perpetually starting over. Okay, so how do we actually apply this data right now? Based on this research, we've got a highly actionable self-audit you can do. And hey, this isn't about judging your current management team. It's about analytically looking at the raw data of your own organizational structure. So here's what you do. Consider these 3 variables for every member of your top team. First, how long did it actually take them to truly learn the system and understand how work gets done here? Second, how long did it take to build genuine trust with the team? And third, how long was it before they made their first real impact? That first major decision that created a lasting positive ripple effect. Now, add those years up and compare that total number to your company's average retention rate for those key positions. Which brings us to our final and most critical question. If your average leadership retention is shorter than the time it actually takes to build trust, you have a severe systemic problem on your hands. You aren't building a legacy. You're literally just resetting a timer. So ask yourself, are you actually giving your roots the time they need to grow, or are you just perpetually digging up the tree?